Copy of the decision will be sent to the applicant or agent or to any person who files a written request. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body operating under the Planning Act, the Municipal Act, and the Statutory Powers Procedure Act, as well as various provincial regulations. Sections 45 and 50 of the Planning Act outline the circumstances surrounding the approval of minor variances and controlling the conveyance of land in Ontario, and the prevention of subdivision of any land except with governmental approval. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the consent decision or the conditions to the local planning appeal tribunal within 20 days of the decision date. Does any member of this committee have a pecuniary interest in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing?
Not I.
No. I have none, John.
I see none. Thank you. For those of you from the public that are here today, can you please write in the chat box your name, address, and the property that you are here to comment on today? Also, please keep your computers muted until it's your turn to speak. When the time comes for each application, I will ask from the public that would like to speak to raise their hands, and then I will call upon them to talk, which is when you can unmute your computer. Are there any requests to change the order of the agenda from staff?
None at this time.
Was notice given as required to by the Planning Act?
Yes, it was.
Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
No, there are not.
The application process. Process for dealing with the applications is as follows. I will ask the representative for each application to state their name. I will then ask the city planner to summarize the city planning report and comments. I will then ask the Secretary Treasurer if there are any comments received after the making of the report that need to be read into the minutes. The representative for the file will be asked if they wish to comment, and committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions. I will then ask if anyone in the audience wishes to speak. Committee members and their representative will have a final opportunity to comment, and then the committee will vote on the application. Madam Planner, the first application, please.
The first application is Center Street, and Nicolette will do an overview.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nicolette.
Good morning, members of committee and staff. Again, my name is Nicolette from MHBC Planning. We've been retained by the City of Thorold to oversee the Committee of Adjustment applications. So this application before you at 2292 Center Street. The applicant is Upper Canada Consultants, and we have Craig Rowe here that will be preparing or presenting on behalf of the owner. The lands are located within the urban living area in the City of Thorold official plan. They are also within the Allenburg neighborhood. I have one error in the report where we listed the property being with a greenfield overlay. However, that is incorrect. It is just outside the greenfield overlay. Having said that, the application before you requests consent to create a new lot for single residential development. The new lot, being the severed lands, meet both the minimum area and lot width requirements of the zoning bylaw. The lands are zoned R1A residential first density. And the only request here for a minor variance is for the rear yard. The rear yard is required is 7.5 meters and being asked to reduce down to 3.1 meters to accommodate an existing addition on the dwelling, on the existing dwelling unit. So it's recognizing an existing situation. Having said that, the rear yard, the amenity space provided on the property is greater than what would actually be required by the current zoning regulations. The side yard is greater than what is provided by the current regulations, and therefore it has an amenity area equal to or more than 140 square meters, whereas under regular zoning conditions, a lot width of 18 meters with a rear yard of 7.5 meters would have a rear yard of 135 meters square. So we're recommending approval of the application based on governing official plan policies, overriding provincial policies for intensification, and subject to the conditions listed in the report. The other, I think Megan's going to read out comments from the neighborhood
That's right, Nicolette.
residents. Okay. So I'll pass it on to you, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan?
So while I'm reading, I just brought up the survey so that everyone can have a look at it. So for this application, I received one petition and then 4 separate public comments. So starting with the petition, it appears to be have 116 names written on it from individuals living on roads such as Center Street, Clifford Street, Gaynor Street, Barron Road, Lundy's Lane, Fall Street, and Henderson Street. The main themes of the petition include belief that it is not minor in terms of the minor variance, parking and traffic concerns, drainage concerns, not in harmony with the surrounding community, in consistency with the Ontario Housing Policy document, not aligning with the official plan. So from that, there are more specifics written with the petition that read, 1, reduction of rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.1 meters is not minor. R1A zoning exists precisely for this reason. Approval of this variance will create a precedent and may lead to this request being common practice in future property requests. The second one is parking and traffic. Increasing the number of homes will decrease, while decreasing lot size reduces available parking, leading to the likelihood of vehicles being parked on the street, which then becomes a safety concern. The addition of another driveway on Hanson would require the relocation of the community mailbox. Placement on Center Street would cause traffic related safety concerns. Drainage. 3, drainage. The placement of the proposed second dwelling sits on an area of natural drainage and may have negative impacts on this. There are already issues with the inability of the existing storm sewers to adequately handle rain events, and flooded basements are not uncommon. 4, not in harmony with the surrounding community. Dividing this property as requested would result in 2 small lots, which would only degrade the existing neighborhood. Several mature trees would be lost. What would remain at 2292 Center Street is a home with a 4-foot backyard, no garage or other outdoor storage necessary in a home without a full basement and no deck. Current newer one to be removed. The need to provide a new driveway to the property would only reduce the outdoor living space even further. 5, inconsistencies with the Ontario Housing Policy document. 6, does not align with the City of Thorold's official plan, which states a 2.4 urban character goals. It is a goal of this plan to protect and ensure the small town character of the existing urban area. Objective to maintain enhance the urban area as diverse, livable, safe, accessible, and attractive communities. To respect the character of stable residential areas and only support applications for new development that are physically compatible with the character of surrounding neighborhoods. To maintain and encourage the character and stability of existing and well-established residential neighborhoods, to ensuring that development and redevelopment is compatible with the scale and density of the existing development. We disagree that this applicant's argument that this lot is ripe for intensification. Available of these requests do not serve the benefit of the community or future residents at 2292 Center Street. The sole party to benefit would be the developer. We understand and therefore respect requests the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Thorold to vote against these applications. So that was from the petition, and then there are 4 other notes that I'll read in now. However, I'm just going to share something else while I read, so you have something else to look at. Nicolette put together lotting fabric for this area and found 12 houses, I guess, similar in nature. So I'm just going to share that while I have something else to read. So the first note from first public member is from a resident located in the area. For right now, I'll just leave the name out. So attention City of Thorold clerk, I would like to attend Zoom meeting today. I would strongly object to the variance and the building any new or replacement houses in the area of Allenburg. This area has a number of historic homes that are relative to the history of Thorold, Niagara, and Sir Isaac Brock. Allen was one of Brock's generals. Having grown up on this part of Center Street, we children always found Indian arrowheads. There is a lot of history here that we should be celebrating. In addition, the lack of services for Allenburg, Thorold South, and Fort Robinson, i.e. walk-in clinic, fire department in Thorold South, that is too often unmanned, lack of police services, insanity on this S-bound and high traffic volumes on the bridge, regardless of their traffic studies done during the COVID. There's a lot of land at Barker Parkway. That area should be utilized. This land is already meant for development with the appropriate infrastructure. So the next comment is someone from 1555 Anderson Street who is on today. Please accept this letter as a formal opposition for the 2 applications which have been submitted for consent for the purpose of creating a lot. I do not agree that the 2 small lots should be created at 2292 Center Street. I am also opposed to the minor variance proposing to reduce the setback at the back of Part 1 parcel from 7.5 meters to 3.1 meters. The following are only a few reasons for my opposition. 1, small lot size reduces the potential of families moving into the neighborhood. Most families are looking for larger yards for children to be able to spend considerable time outdoors, enjoying various outdoor activities. Family units are the main building blocks for vibrant, stable communities. 2, small lot sizes increases the likelihood of additional vehicles parked on the street, safety issues. Most households have cars that equal the number of adults in the home. 3, cars coming and going from these 2 lots so close to Henderson / Center Street intersection will create considerable safety issues. 4, the minor variance setback reduces or request will create a precedence in common practice in future property requests. And lastly, the intensification of this well-established small town of Allenburg is not required considering all of the farm and large areas of land in the surrounding areas of Thorold and Greater Niagara region that can be developed. I would like to ask the committee members to review the City of Thorold's official plan, which states numerous guidelines to protecting, enhancing, and respecting stable, attractive, and well-established residential neighborhoods and communities. Please help us to protect the community's culture and larger property sizes by opposing the severance and minor variance. Then I have 2 more. This one, is from someone at 1554 Henderson Street. As clearly shown by the petition of the Allenburg community, this property is strongly opposed. The planning report from MHBC Planning, Nicolette, there's several false information or generalizes used that does not provide sufficient reasons to allow the variance to be approved. With quotations, in order to support the new lots created, the following minor variance is being requested. Then the variance from 7.5 meters to 3.1 meters is not minor. The bylaw was created to stop the creation of small lots like the proposed. The fact that the variance has been requested shows that the lot 2 is not compatible with the surrounding community. Section A242, by allowing the variance, you creating a precedent going forward for other lots to be created using this variant. Next, quotations. A number of smaller lot sizes have been created within close proximity to the subject lands, and the proposed development is in keeping with existing neighborhood character, which says, I would like to see one other example of variance being allowed in close proximity to this lot. There needs to be specific examples shown of a house/lot in the community that is similar to the proposed lot 2. Next, quotations. The reduced rear yard continues to provide sufficient area for private amenity space for both the severed and retained lots, which says the removal of the current driveway, garage, and rear deck of the existing dwelling will have massive effects of the space that is left for each lot. There will not be sufficient area when the original dwelling will need to be rebuild a garage on the remaining lot, as well as a new driveway. There is no rear yard left due to the variance, making this an undesirable property. 3.1 meters is not adequate. The large lot size is what makes this community desirable. In conclusion, these are just a few of the many issues from the planning report. They have not given adequate information to show that the minor variance would maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Section A2.4.2 of the official plan has been created for a reason, and there is no justification given to go against this. The character of this well-established residential neighborhood is under attack from outside businesses trying to make a quick buck. These official plans were created to safeguard these exact neighborhoods, and my only hope is that the counselors who were brought in to respect Thorold will do exactly that. So the final written public response that I have is from 2296 Center Street, who is here today as well. This area of Allenburg is a well-established, desirable treed area where properties far exceed any setback guidelines. I believe that these zoning codes are in place to be used as tools for the city of Thorold to protect its residents, and the integrity of their properties would result from the deviation from them. To reduce the setback from 7.5 meters to 3.1 meters is a major reduction of 58% and could open the door for more variance applications. The home at 2292 Center Street was constructed in 1849 and moved to its current location after the completion of the fourth Welling Canal. This home has a small partial basement. This space is adequate to house utilities and has minimal other storage value. The removal of a 4-car driveway, new 8x10 deck, and the demolition of the solid, fully updated 15x20 garage with a replacement cost of over $40,000 is beyond belief. The developer has already stated that there is no plans to provide any type of replacement outdoor storage. Replacing these lost elements would overwhelming with no assurance as how they would be done. The impact of the future homeowner would be significant. A 3.1 meter backyard or 10 feet on a corner lot or a large front yard. Beyond its curb appeal, this space provides little use. Hanson is a narrow tree-lined street with one sidewalk and ditches. The proposed driveway location on Hanson Street would possibly have vehicles feet from the sidewalk in the community mailbox that services 27 homes. The severed lot in any development would further exacerbate the situation. Drainage is a concern based on my historic knowledge of our neighborhood. The rear of 2292 Center Street is the lowest point on the block, with surrounding properties sloped in this area. There is a large storm drain in the boulevard. We believe this may have weaving tile connected to the rear of this property, and that this should be explored. The storm sewers on Center Street are compromised. The ground is receding and sinkholes have developed. The Thorold Works Department have addressed these issues several times over the past few years, and they need permanent repair. The term ripe for intensification was used on June 16th. With the proposal, intensification is to be achieved by severing one large property in a well-established neighborhood to create two congested small lots after the removal of numerous fully mature trees and the demolition of sound structures. This is not productive or responsible intensification. It does not align with the provincial policy statement as I interpret it. Thorold is ranked as the fastest growing city in Canada and is doing its part to help the housing crisis with multiple developments and thousands of homes being built. There is a 100+ home development proposed in Allenburg. This severance represents a fraction of a percent. Sooner or later, most of the open lands around Thorold will be consumed by development. Let's play an active role in preserving these pockets of historical communities with the generous traditional properties. Choosing to have 2292 Center Street remain intact as it was meant to be will provide a greater benefit to the greater number. It is the homemade. If this home made it to open market, I am sure many single families would have pursued it, and we would not be having this discussion today. And that was the last written comment that I had to say, and then it will be going back to the chair now.
Thank you, Megan. Well done. Lots of comments that came in after the application was read. Nicolette, I'm going to go back to you just for a second, simply because your name was used. Did you want to address any of those comments?
Yes, thank you everyone for providing your concerns. I just want to address that a lot of these concerns relating to lot size, please consider that the proposed new lot and the existing lot both exceed the minimum lot requirements of the existing zone. So we are creating two lots that meet the zoning lot area and lot frontage requirements. All the other comments relating to drainage, grading, servicing, those will be addressed at the building permit stage. The new development will have to abide by lot grading and drainage conditions and requirements of the city of Thorold. So those issues will be addressed at that point. The other comment I wanted to make about, because the overriding comment is that they believe that that a lot of the residents believe that the the rear yard reduction from 7.5 meters to 3.1 is not minor. I just want to read in the official plan, there is a definition of what a minor variance is. So section E1.5 provides a definition on how we evaluate what a minor variance is. In making a determination of whether a variance is minor, the committee will have more regard for the degree of impact which could result from the relief and less regard to the magnitude of numeric or absolute relief sought by the applicant. In addition, applicants who request a minor variance should be prepared to demonstrate a need for the requested relief on the basis that the subject zoning provision is not warranted in a particular circumstances, causes undue hardship, or is otherwise impossible to comply with. In this case, the rear yard is existing. It is an existing situation and has occurred because of an addition to the existing dwelling. There is sufficient amenity space to accommodate, as I mentioned before, a proper amenity space for the existing house. So I just wanted to reiterate that minor, the definition of minor, it should relate to the impact. There is no impact here to other adjacent property owners. So yeah, in summary, those are my comments. But thank you everyone for being concerned about this development. Thank you.
Who speaks on behalf of this application? Is that you, Craig?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Craig Rowe, Upper Canada Consultants.
Go ahead, Craig. Do you have comments?
Yeah, just a few, Mr. Chair. As this is a continuation of the last hearing we had, I'm going to forego the presentation.
Thank you.
We received copies of these additional comments last evening and the petition as well. So I just kind of like to, at a high level, address some of these comments and just provide a little bit of commentary to the committee for instruction. I mean, what we're dealing with, and this is outlined in our planning submission we made with the application. Since 2006, it's been very clear about the direction for land use planning in Ontario through the growth plan and the subsequent edits to it. The city's official plan was updated in 2016, approved by the region, deemed to conform with those plans. The zoning bylaw, although it's in transition right now, does implement the directions there. What we're proposing is a severance in the city's urban living area, which permits all forms of residential development. It's in the built up area, which is where intensifications to be directed. The lot has existing servicing available. And we're talking about the creation of one additional residential housing opportunity in a stable neighborhood. These are all things that are accepted and inform a lot of the planning applications that are before this committee quite often. We agree with the recommendations of MHBC on behalf of the Thorold Planning Department. And certainly should this committee elect to turn down the applications, just I think for the benefit of everybody with the process, in these situations where we have a positive staff recommendation, the city would have to go and procure external legal counsel and planning opinion to defend the position of the committee against that of the city's planners that recommended, as well as ourselves. But we're hoping that through an explanation addressing some of these comments that we can arrive at a positive recommendation this morning. Some of the things I wanted to go through were just kind of outlined on the letter of the petition here. And I'm not calling into question necessarily the integrity of this petition, although the cover page with the issues outlined certainly in a different format and font than the signature page. So I'm not sure, and I'm not sure who canvassed this petition at all. Just to ensure that those folks that did sign this indeed were in agreement with all of those points that were listed there. And I do hope that the committee has taken a close look at the location of the addresses on this petition. Specifically, I was the acting agent on the 22 unit subdivision located down on Barron Road, not 100 units as put forward in one of the submissions today, 22 units, and we only had 2 public objections on that. So just from my own experience, it's a bit surprising to see 116 signatures objecting to development in this area when we didn't experience anything close to that with a much more significant application. But that's not necessarily within scope, but anecdotal nonetheless. In terms of the reduction of the rear yard setback, so I'm just following along the petition numbers here. 7.5 meters to 3.1 meters is minor, in my opinion. The test of the official plan are to promote residential development and intensification, and that's being satisfied through this application. The intent of a rear yard setback is to provide enough room for amenity, drainage, and access to a property. All of these are being achieved. The reduction only pertains to an existing portion of the structure that would become close to the lot line. As you can see on that severance sketch that has been provided, the balance of the rear wall of the dwelling is at 7.5 meters in conformity with the zoning bylaw. So it's a very small existing area that release being requested for. If it's appropriate for the use of the land, it's a residential lot it's an existing residential lot in a residential neighborhood in its existing form. Nothing new is being added. And it really is minor in nature because it's just allowing for the functionality of the property to remain. So I still rely on my submission to the city, my written submissions with this application. With regard to parking and traffic, this wasn't an issue that was brought up by the city. And in comparison, I would say that saying one house having a significant impact on traffic anecdotally would be no different than an existing dwelling entertaining the provisions of the official plan and zoning to introduce an accessory dwelling unit, which would come with a car, or someone with children that are coming of age and learning to drive. This anecdotally adds additional traffic to the road, and I don't think anyone would say that it causes a significant impact. With regard to drainage, I think that Nicolette did a good job of outlining that these things are evaluated during the building permit stage when detailed housing plans, topographic surveys, and servicing plans are generated for the property. They're prepared by professional engineers, reviewed by professional engineers, and the permits are only released if they're deemed to have no negative impact on adjacent properties. In terms of not being in harmony with adjacent development, the lots proposed are generally the same size as the property exactly across the road to the south. They're both going to contain single detached dwellings. They have ample room on them for amenity and spacing consistent with all the other houses in the area. And just because they're a little bit smaller, we're talking about like a 25-meter frontage, which is quite large. This isn't a small lot that's being created. So it's my opinion that it's still compatible. In terms of inconsistencies with the Ontario housing policy, I'm not quite sure what's being referred to. It says the PPS, but the PPS basically directs for a mix and range of housing opportunities to be provided within communities, which this application leads itself to providing. The goals for urban character are upheld. And this is relating to item 6. Protecting and enhancing small town character is important, but that doesn't mean that everything needs to be absolutely identical. Single detached dwellings are compatible with other single detached dwellings. This property is going to have significant yards for amenity, significant landscaping, all consistent with what's found throughout the neighborhood. So I think that covers off the main issues that were outlined, at least on the petition. But overall, I think what we want to do is just make ourselves available certainly to answer any questions that the committee may have, or maybe some clarifications we can provide to any of the residents today. But one of the things that my client has asked me for in light of just the amount of questions we got is when the decision is rendered, if the committee could be quite clear in just explaining how or how not the application satisfies or does not satisfy Section 5124 of the Planning Act and their opinion on what tests of a minor variance it satisfies or does not satisfy. I think that clarity is very important, especially if this does eventually end up at a tribunal hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Committee members, if you could raise your hand if you have any questions or comments of Nicolette or Craig or Megan. Mr. Pizzo, go ahead.
Megan, how long have you had these objections in your office?
Through the chair, the petition came in, I believe, after lunch on Monday, when I was out at I was specifically out at this property, talking to the residents. I left probably half an hour after this came on my desk. So I was out talking to the residents. I went around, Jared and I, my student, to the neighbors to talk to them, explain the process to them.
My question is how long did you have the application, the objections?
As I said, they came on my desk after lunch, around lunchtime on Monday. other comments came in at 5:30 yesterday, on Tuesday. Instead of sending 5 different emails to you, I summarized them all and presented them and read them out to you today. So different ones came in at different times, but all of these came in this week.
Well, the ones you had first part of the week, you should have sent to us because it was pretty hard to pick up most of what you're saying today. Now, there's no objections from the building division, the engineering division, the city of Thorold.
Nicolette?
No,
Okay, Nicolette, while you're there, the 7.5 3.1 is not my major concern with you, right? You said in this fabric, there's quite a few houses up quite a distance from there, 8 houses, quite a distance. There's only 4 within reason. Let's see what I got here. Oh, that's okay. I'll if I have something else, I'll be bringing it up to you.
Okay, further questions, comments from committee members?
Yes, I have one, John.
I can't see you, Glenn. Could you enable your video, please?
I'm not sure how to do that, John.
Lower left-hand corner, Glenn.
Oh, I see.
There you are, Glenn. All right, go ahead with your question
Okay,
or comment.
through the chair, I guess, to Megan, there will be enough off-street parking on both of these properties if the severance goes through?
Through the chair, I would just, reflecting on what our chief building official who was on last month was situating, there did not seem to be any concern about any parking situations.
Okay, thank you, Megan.
Mr. D'Angelo, Mr. Ravenik, anything right at this time? Mr. Ravenik, go ahead.
If through you, Mr. Chair, Megan, if you could bring up again the sketch survey of the property, and there's a couple of questions that I have. It doesn't come up particularly clear on my screen, and I don't want to misquote the numbers. On the north side of the property, there's a garage. What's the setback of that garage to the property?
So
On the north side?
through the
On the neighboring property, move your cursor up. There,
Oh,
right there. Yep.
okay, that says 3.93
Okay, and then
meters.
okay, and then off to the right, there's also a setback, which I think I can see now is 1.29 meter setback.
That's what I'm seeing.
Okay, and then the actual area of the existing home, the addition that is sort of the correct where your cursor is. Could someone give us an approximation of the size of that section of the house? It looks like it would be about twice the size of the setback. So I'm going to say probably about 6 or 7 meters is the only portion of that existing residence that is affected by the reduction in setback. Correct. That's exactly it, Megan.
Craig, do you know how much that is?
Through Mr. Chair, are you looking for a clarification of, I see a highlighted area on the screen. Are you looking for the whole addition from the back wall where it says 7.5 meters?
No, just the width of that addition, Mr. Rowe.
If I had to
Approximately.
ballpark it, I'd say 4.5 meters-ish.
4.31. 7.5 minus 3.19.
Okay, so it's a fairly small portion of that residence that's affecting the setback area. Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ravenik. Mr. D'Angelo, anything at this time? Not right now. All right, now we're going to go one at a time to the public.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions before you go
Oh,
to
I'm
that.
sorry, Mr. Frizo, my mistake. Go
Okay,
ahead.
Craig, Could you straighten something up for me? You said that the lots across the road are comparable to this piece of land?
That's correct. Through Mr. Chair to Member Pizzo. The property directly south of the lot is approximately 580 square meters in lot area, which is the same as our remnant or as our proposed parcel.
Yeah, so two of them are right across from each other. They're within reason too, eh? Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
it's tagged as number 13. I think, Megan, if you wouldn't mind just scrolling down, I think Ms. Van Oyen provided the measurements under 13 is not on there for some reason.
Okay, so they're that size or bigger, you're saying, right?
Yeah, so just my measurement through my prep for the hearing this morning, Mr. Chair, to Member Pizzo, I measured it using AgriAtlas. Number 13 on that map across the road turned up about 580 square meters. And I believe that our proposed lot size is 585 square meters. So
Thank you, Greg. Just one more question to the planner. Explain to me 7.5 to 3.1. It's not a minor variance for you. And you say there's properties around there within the region 3.1?
Nicolette?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think as I've indicated before, the definition of minor is not a numeric analysis. It is a measure of impact. In this case, we've got a lot that's being created that where a rear yard area of 7.5 meters, which is what's required under the zoning bylaw, is still being maintained. It's just a portion of the addition where the lot does not comply. So the impact is minor. The impact is minor. There is no impact. There is still a proper amenity area with a setback of 7.5 meters from the main house. And because the lot is so large, the lot has no issue providing a proper amenity area.
But you did say you've run into areas where they are 3.1.
Sorry?
So you've run into other lots that are 3.1 is not out of context.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's all I needed to know.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzo. Members of the public, if you wish to speak, please just put your hand up.
John, Chair,
Who's it? Who's talking?
it's Henry.
Oh, thank you, Mr. D'Angelo.
Yeah, just wanted to ask a couple questions regarding the existing house. Once it's severed, I know last meeting there was some discussion, but where would the new proposed driveway be? Would it be on Henderson or would it be on Center?
Craig, you want to take that?
Yes,
And then,
pardon me
and
as
then
I share my screen.
Mr. Chair, also along with that question is how many parking spots will be in the driveway?
Through Mr. Chair, so if I could direct Member D'Angelo and the committee to this sketch. This isn't the survey sketch. This is transposed into civil. We use it to demonstrate zoning conformity with our submissions. There's two driveway options. One is to provide legal parking space here, or to provide a driveway option here. This will be refined. We noted our submission. We have no objection to either location, whichever staff prefers, we're happy to provide. The zoning requirements currently, as it pertains to single detached dwellings, is one parking space. We do understand that should the new zoning bylaw have its appeal lifted on the residential provisions, that requirement will go up to 2 spaces. But as we do have ample frontage and depth from our property lines, we do have the ability to have a wider driveway. And I would note that certainly if there are concerns about the existing mailboxes, our company works with Canada Post on design, and it is not much work to slide this down a little bit further to make sure that there's no conflict. It's not a significant issue.
Mr. D'Angelo, did that answer your questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, excellent, thank you.
You're welcome. Seeing no more questions or comments from the committee members at this time, we can always come back. Now, if you just, Mr. Petrushko, did you raise your hand that I see? you may unmute and go ahead, sir.
Well, I had a presentation here to go about sort of methodically and but a lot of information came forward that I have to kind of wing it for a bit. So Megan, could you put up that overview of the of Allenburg with all of these smaller lot sizes, you know, from Nicolette's overview, please?
Yeah.
So my name is Bill Petrushko. I've lived in Allenburg for 40 years and I'm very familiar with all of these properties. Number 13 was mentioned earlier. This is a tiny little single-story home that's been there forever. It isn't like a new addition to the neighborhood. And it also has a great deal of setback from all sides from any structure. Number 12 has been there forever. It's an old home and it has nothing behind it. I mean, when you get to setback and you're abutting other properties, that's a different issue. But these properties are to open lands, rail lands, open fields. 1, 2, 3, and 4, they were placed there after a welding erection shop, a big commercial eyesore in Allenburg. And they're on the canal bank. So their rear yard setbacks and their overall volume of their lots are greatly increased. They're banked on the canal bank and as they have open areas behind them. So, I mean, all of these other properties you talk about, most of them are old buildings, except for those 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, I mean, I don't really think any of that is applicable to say that that's the common theme in Allenburg. Anyway, that's what I had to say on that. And if you could go to my presentation there, please, Megan. So this is just something I put together a little bit to give you an idea of the neighborhood and you get a better appreciation. Go to the aerial view number 2 there, Megan, please. So you can see with the 2 properties that I've highlighted in the corner with the yellow and the hash marks represents the severed property and the current home that is there. And you can very well see that these properties are nowhere near the size of the surrounding properties. And even some of the other ones off to the side, they're banked on open fields and open areas. They're not going to be abutted against each other. Can you go to the next slide, Megan, please? So this here gives you an idea as to the size of this property and where the rear yard setback comes into play. If you realize that it's going to be severed at the garage and the deck will have to be removed, but you can also see that the rear entrance to that home is like 3 feet above grade. So it's going to need a stoop or a step or an entranceway of some sort, but still it's going to occupy some area. And you also see a gas meter there, and this is the proposed area where they're going to park cars, which I tend to think is, I don't know, I don't want to park my car near a gas meter, that's for sure. So there'd have to be some protection. So that, again, limits this area for use. There's something else I wanted to touch on. You know, I see these Amish, buildings on the side of the road and they just, come over, buy one, they pick it up and they put it on your property. This garage is like in solid condition and it's over 100 years as well, all made out of solid planks. The previous homeowner put a new door in it, windows and doors. This is a good solid structure. The developer and/or applicant could easily pick that garage up and move it onto the property, the existing home's property, but they're not going to do it because they know there's no room for it. This home is 173 years old, does not have a basement, and it's going to need outside storage. It's going to have an outbuilding, so that again will completely reduce. Now this property line, and you can picture it, and you're going to walk out that door and you're going to be looking at the side of a house. Now this is a major impact. These other homes you're talking about in lot size, this is not about lot size here. What you've got here is you have a house that's on a fair sized lot, absolutely, but it's not centered. It's at the back of the property. And the front yard and the side yard, which I consider to be front yards, it faces Center Street, but it also faces Henderson Street. That's, to me, that's like 2 front yards. So can you go to the next slide, Megan, please? So here you see, this is where the proposed driveway would be. So there'd have to be a tree removed. And, you know, he's talking about 1 or 2 cars. It doesn't matter where it's going to be. Of course, it doesn't matter to him where it's going to be, but it does matter to the future homeowners. And this is kind of like what my biggest concern is that we're kind of representing the future homeowners of this property. That, you know, that you can say anything you want. You know what, the impact to me personally, I understand it's not really relevant, but the impact to the future homeowner of this property is going to be maybe a citizen of Thorold and Center or Allenburg is going to be substantial. That home is lost all of its, as the Chris said at the last meeting, its curb appeal. The curb appeal is the end of the story because this home is the only thing that's good about this home is the property. Could you go to the next slide, please, Megan? Now here you see that this is a community mailbox. It's in very close proximity to where these proposed driveways is going to be on Henderson. I mean, they could go to this front on Center Street, but if this already services 27 homes, this area right now is already dealing with a lot of traffic issues, which, you know, I'm really glad to say that I don't think anyone would want this in front of their property, but the previous owners had no problem with it. This would have to be moved for sure. And where is it going to go? And who is it going to impact? I have no idea. Could you go to the next slide, please? No, the other way down there, that next one. So here you can see that with I'm just giving you another shot of the deck and the area and whatnot, and the trees that are involved. And we did speak about the trees, but the one thing I didn't hear anything about. Go to the number 8 there. Megan, please. This is the front of the home, and these are the trees. You know what? In this planning report, I didn't see any mention about the trees. You know, we always talk about ecological impact and environmental impact, and I was talking about the drainage. Well, some trees are going to have to be removed, and you know, to see 1 or 2 trees removed is sad, but to see 5 or 6 of these trees removed is wrong. And could you go to the next picture, Megan, please? Yes, so you can see the front yard and the trees, and they're beautiful, and we don't want to see them go. And again, we know that occasionally a tree has to be removed. Could you go to the next picture, please, Megan? So this is the backyard. This is the proposed severed lot. And these trees are magnificent, and they're like 60, 70 years old, 50, 60, 70 feet or 60 feet tall. And they provide a service in the drainage. I'm sure that they're involved in the absorption of water in this area. Anyway, the other thing too, I think everybody recalls back in June, the end of June, after our last meeting, there was an unbelievable rainstorm. And I, being the sleuth that I am, jumped out of my truck to see how it impacted Allenburg. So I drove around, and most of Allenburg was flooded. Gator Street, the water was rolling over the roads. The ditches were overflowing. The ditches across the street from this property were full and running like a river. And 2276 6th Street on just beyond the number 12 on the overview has had ongoing flooding issues for years now. And the planning department allowed that home to be built. And what I see in this in the planning report too, it says no impacts to the subject lands or adjacent properties are anticipated. That's not very reassuring. It's only a guess as far as I'm concerned. Can you go to the next picture, please, Megan? So there's a large storm sewer right in the middle of this section here. And that day that storm happened, this area was bone dry. You could hear the water rushing through there. This area in the back here, in the back of the property, was bone dry. because, and I don't know how it works. All I know is I've never seen standing water there. And also, I had excavation done in my yard years ago, was to put a swimming pool in, and I dug up a big old septic tank. And I tend to think there's a septic tank there as well. I think I had something, I didn't think I did too bad by winging it there, but I gotta say one more thing. You know, like I said, I read an article about a month ago, and it said that Thorold is the fastest growing city in Canada. We have multiple developments all over the area. The traffic on Highway 20 has increased significantly because of the Niagara region in general. It's development like unbelievable, which is good. You know, open spaces, and they create new neighborhoods and developments, and they're all in line with each other, and they're all sectioned off. But there's certainly no need to sever this lot, to jam in a house, to basically cripple the existing home that is there. It's a fraction of a percent for all the development. So to say it's ripe for intensification, no, I say it was ripe for profit. The developer and or the realtor who purchased this home from this 80-year-old woman went in and smoothed her. It didn't even go to open market, and they knew what they were doing. They says, we can cut this property in half, manipulate all the codes so we can make a profit.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I don't think we should characterize my client in that fashion publicly, please.
Oh, no, I want to get back to Chris too here. About Craig, is it Craig? You know, Craig, my wife, my son.
We're not gonna get personal.
Well, no, I'm just telling him who did this petition. He got personal. He's the one that got
No,
personal.
we're not gonna do that.
All right, I apologize, John. Craig questioned the credibility of the petition. And I'm going to tell you, there was a lot of people that worked very hard on it, and that petition is legit. He was questioning the font, John. I mean, so I'm sorry to get personal, but he went in great detail as into questioning the credibility of the petition, questioning the people, 116 people that are very concerned about the future of Allenburg. We just feel that this is a first step that's going on. And I'll give you a little bit of extra information. The house directly across the street from 2292 has recently been sold, and it's been deemed unlivable. So it's to be demolished. And I understand there's going to be a beautiful detached home, single detached home there. Another house 2 doors down, which I believe is to be demolished. We suspect it's a small home, and it's old. And again, it's only 2 doors down. So we are concerned about the future in Allenburg. And there's also, there was a town hall meeting here a little over a month ago with regards to the development of close to 100 homes in Allenburg. And so this is not only based on this one variant and this two applications. This is based on a theme that we see is potentially going to be the future of Allenburg. So I think I pretty well covered it. And if I got personal, I really apologize. But my wife and my son and Fred and others went around this neighborhood for a week, canvassing people and shared stories with each other in their concern. So I really, if it got personal, believe me, I took it personal as well. Thank you very much. I hope I've given you some good information.
Thank you, Mr. Petrusko, and thank you for your time. Another resident that might want to speak, Mr. Regier. Unmute and off you go.
Through the chair, while we might be waiting, it looks like something came into the chat. I'm just gonna read it for everyone. It says, from Frankie, just to be clear, the property was listed on a public market and there were multiple offers on the property.
Thank you. That's information well received. Mr. Regier, are you unmute? There you go.
Yeah, here we go.
There you go, Fred.
Great.
of the chair. Fred, when you're ready, you can begin.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, you go right ahead, Fred.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Fred Regier. I own and reside at 1555 Henderson Street, Allenburg, directly across the property in question. First of all, I would like to thank the committee for deferring this decision and the discussion and decision of the application to sever and create a new lot and minor variance to reduce the rear setback. The last few weeks have given the residents of Allenburg additional time to either join the meeting today, make their voices heard by sending in letters to the committee, or sign the petition that has been submitted. I trust the petition has been circulated to all committee members along with the appendix, and I believe it has. The petition was put together and completed painstakingly, I might add. I did not know how hard and how much time was required to put a petition together. There were 5 Allenburg residents. I wasn't going to name them, but I think you all know that Bill and Karen Petrushko and Bill, their son, Jesse Jansen, and myself put this together. Before, I just want to say this as well, before any Allenburg residents signed this petition, all facts and supporting information was communicated by written and verbal form. In front of you, you now see over 110, I guess it's 116 signatures of Allenburg residents who oppose these 2 applications. The fonts of the 2 pages have absolutely no relevance. We're not that technical. The letter was handed and explained to every single person that signed. And like I said, it was painstakingly gathered. I would ask the committee not to take a single name that you see before you, even though they are not present in the meeting right now. Many are elderly, actually, and many do Zoom. They just don't do it. Some have computers. I would also like to ask the committee to consider the City of Thorold official plan again, which has been mentioned a number of times. The plan makes numerous references to protecting communities like Allenburg. Its goal is, and I quote, to protect and enhance the small town character of existing urban areas, unquote. 2 small lots is not physically compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. I believe these 2 small lots will devalue our community. I don't mean devalue in a monetary sense, but in a cultural sense. We need larger family-sized lots to remain, to enhance the stable community we have. I just want to also reference Nicolette's existing lotting fabric in the neighborhood. Sorry, but I just can't, you can't use that as a blanket kind of thing where you have 13 properties that I don't know if she's suggesting that these are exactly like the application we're looking at right now, but they absolutely are not, as Bill has also mentioned. Just to mention a few, property 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right off the bat, caught my eye. They are joined to areas that will never be developed and have an ample amount of green space and space for families to grow. So each of those properties really needs to be looked at separately in context with the community, rather than kind of, the only similar thing in all 13 are they're similar in size, give or take. That's about all. The last thing, thank you to the committee for hearing my concerns. In light of all the discussions and comments opposing these 2 applications, I strongly urge the committee to oppose the lot severance minor variance requests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? If you just raise your hand, put it in front of your face, I'll try and see. I don't see any.
I don't see any either.
Thank you, Megan. My second pair of eyes. Further questions or comments from the committee members?
Chairman,
Betty.
Who?
I'd just like to ask
Go ahead, Mr.
Craig,
Peterson.
when he was making reference to the houses that were on the petition, what were you thinking?
Through Mr. Chair to Member Pizzo, my comment was just, I wanted to be assured that when this petition was signed, that everyone who did had the opportunity to review those clear points in the covering letter, which outlined the issues, just to satisfy myself that these individuals, I'm not questioning the signatures. They were clearly signed by people. I just was looking for some confirmation that they did attest and support all of the comments that were provided in that covering letter. And my comments were just a little surprised to see such a wide ranging. I think the furthest point may be a half kilometer away from the site. Just from a planning standpoint, I found that interesting to see that someone would feel that the reduction in a rear yard setback and creation of a lot would affect them at such a distance several streets over.
Why I asked you that question is the lot fabric homes she displayed, they weren't very close either.
Through Mr. Chair, that's correct, but we did not prepare that schedule in defense of our arguments.
Mr. Pizzo, anything else?
No.
Thank you. Committee members? Mr. D'Angelo, please.
Yeah, Chair, just through you, regarding that lot fabric diagram with the 13 dots on there. I don't know if anyone can answer this question, but of those 13 dots, how many of those have applied for minor variances when they were being built? Is that something that's recent, or are those just historical properties that have been there for an extended period of time, like Bill mentioned? So if I could just get some clarity, has there been any, since I've been on the committee, I don't recall anything coming forward of those 13 properties regarding minor variances. So can anyone answer that question?
Nicolette, you prepared the document. Perhaps you could take that.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So I prepared that document as a not to be analyzed specifically for the exact lot areas. That pulled it from the city's website, just to give an general overview of the neighborhood, and that there are a mix of lot sizes and range of lot configurations. That the proposal before you is not an anomaly. It is basically fitting in with the neighborhood. It's not intended to be analyzed. Whether there were minor variances, that would take a lot more digging. But a lot of the lots shown are less than what the zoning bylaw requires. So I'm imagining that there were minor variance requests for them. But again, we didn't do that level of detail. It's just intended to show that there is a range of lotting sizes and fabric within the neighborhood. And so that the proposal before you is not, is not an anomaly in this proposal.
Mr.
Thank you.
D'Angelo?
No, that answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a member of the public who wants to speak? We asked and we went by. Are you wishing to speak, Karen?
Yeah, I'd like to just make two comments or responses to two comments that I've heard. Number one, there was a comment made about the petition with regards to questioning or wondering about the range of streets that people responded, and perhaps, wondering why people would be concerned. I think you have to take into consideration that the people that were surveyed all consider themselves to be residents of Allenburg. And as residents of Allenburg, we are a tight community. What happens in one corner affects the whole neighborhood. The reason that people have moved to this area tends to be whether they be new families or long-established families. They're here for what we have. They don't want to see that gone. Number two, just a minor point to Nicolette's comment, bringing us up to speed as far as what a minor variance is, how it's not to be read in terms of being a numeric. I think you can apply that same thought to the properties that are similar in size. Those lots on the canal, they may be similar in size numerically, but extremely different in terms of their value and what they offer the residents that are living there. So just two minor things.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen. Back to the committee. Further questions or comments from the committee members? Mr. Jackson?
I have none.
Thank you. Mr. Ravenek?
No,
Then I would say we are ready for a motion. Committee members.
Through the chair,
Go ahead, Megan.
I would like maybe if we can make the motion for the minor variance first. To do them separately, so we'll go minor variance first, and when we, like Craig requested, explain what in terms of the minor variance believe it supports and what it doesn't support in terms of the four tests of a minor variance. That will help me in making the notice of decision, so I correctly articulate what you were in support of and not supportive in terms of the four tests of the minor variance. And then it also help everyone when they receive the notice of decision.
Thank you, Megan. That makes sense. D 1316/2022, the minor variance on 2292 Center Street. Can I have a motion? Yay or nay?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pizzo,
I'll put this on the table for consideration. We're going to hear a lot of consideration after I put this motion on the floor. I make a motion that we refuse the application D 1013/2022.
at D 1316/2022, the minor variance is what we're dealing with.
All right, minor variance.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. D'Angelo seconds that motion. Do we have questions or comments on the motion from the committee?
I have none, John.
Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to reject D 1316/2022? And opposed to that motion? 3-2, the motion is passed. That's a denial.
Prior to moving on, so the four tests of a minor variance does it meet the intent of the official plan? Does it meet the intent of the zoning bylaw? Is it minor in nature and is it appropriate for the property? Can you just clarify what did not pass?
That's to the mover and the seconder.
You know, this is getting confusing now. Really
The
confusing.
seconder can help you. Mr. D'Angelo, what was your reason for not supporting?
It's not minor in nature.
That was the only one, and of course, if one fails, they all fail. So your minor is not minor in nature in your estimation.
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. What is the consent?
So now we'll move on to the consent. Prior to moving on for the consent, I'm not sure if Nicolette or you might want to talk about. So we had prepared a list of conditions for the consent, and one of them was that this property obtain a minor variance. Through talking with Nicolette, for a consent application, you have 2 years to confirm every condition. I don't know if we want to consider, regardless, the rear yard setback will have to be dealt with. Obviously, in today's manner, it was not dealt with through the committee of adjustment. But I just want to put it out there that that doesn't have to necessarily mean it's canceled. Possibly considering, Craig, I don't know if you and Nicolette want to consider, do we want to change it to a rezoning?
Well, that's
So
not-
if I can just interject
ahead.
and
Nicolette.
request request, my colleague Julianne von Westerhold is also in the meeting. She's with MHBC Planning and has a lot of experience with Committee of Adjustment applications. So we discussed the possibility of providing a condition in the report that allows the applicant another opportunity for a rezoning application to be approved prior to approval of the consent. So I'll let Julianne speak to that and just maybe explain it a little further with her experience.
Thank you, Nicolette.
you.
Go ahead, Julianne. Is that?
Yeah.
Good morning, committee. Through you, Mr. Chair, just
Great.
to explain a little further, I'm Julianne von Westerhold. I am an associate at MHBC Planning, and as Nicolette suggested, I do have a lot of experience with Committee of Adjustment. You should look at things in terms of, can you support the creation of the lot if the rear yard wasn't an issue? And I think that's what the committee should have a look at. Because right now you've made a recommendation and a decision on the variance that would allow the reduced rear yard. But is there support from the committee for creation of a lot if that wasn't an issue, or if there's another way to deal with that other than a minor variance? Because the reason given by Mr. D'Angelo was that the variance was not minor. If there's an opportunity for the client to, or for the applicant to go through a zone change to deal with any deficiencies in the zoning regulations, such as the one that is being considered here through the minor variance, if there's an opportunity to deal with it in another manner, would the committee see fit that the lot is appropriate? I think that's what we're trying to get you to consider. Is it an all right no on everything, or is the lot itself fine, subject to dealing with this matter of the rear yard reduction? Because it seems that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. D'Angelo, I think the reason you gave was that it was not minor. So if all the other tests were supportable, I'm just wondering whether or not that maybe the approach is not through a minor variance. Maybe there's an opportunity for an approach through a zone change to deal with any deficiencies in zoning. I hope that explains it. Anyways,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pizzo.
I'm asking the person that just spoke. So you're saying they could go back for a rezoning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that there is an opportunity to determine that today, whether or not the committee today just outright does not support the creation of the lot, or if the committee decides that the lot is not as much of an issue, provided that we put in a condition that a zone change be obtained for any deficiencies in the zoning. In this case, one would still have to deal with the reduced rear yard. If the right process is not a minor variance, because it has been determined by this committee that it's not minor, is there another opportunity to deal with that deficiency through a zone change? Or does the committee just outright not support the creation of the lot? So those are the two things that should be considered.
Well, the zoning would give us a second look at it, right?
No.
Council.
So through the chair, if you decided that it was appropriate for, in general, the creation of the lot, then you guys would be done with that matter. The rezoning then would go to council, which would go through a technical report along with the public meeting again, as well as then a recommendation report. And it'd be council's hands to deal with. If the fact is that it's not minor, there is no major variance that the Committee of Adjustment deals with. The major variance would be the rezoning that would be dealt with through council.
Mr. Chairman, I would go along with the rezoning. I have a second crack at it because it might have to go to the tribunal. Well, let's get 2 strikes or striking a ball.
Mr. Ravenek.
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that this lot meets all the minimum sizes, and I'm going to make a motion that the severance consent application D10-13-2022 be approved.
With the change of the condition.
Okay.
Mr. Ravenek, did you
I
hear?
don't have hard copies, so you have to bear with me while I dig up that other piece of paper, which could take forever and a day.
We have time.
No, this is not working. Perhaps you could just read them out because I'm now off into another screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up the conditions so that we can see them on the screen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps Megan could read the motion that is being considered at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She's just going to make a friendly amendment suggestion.
Go.
So right now, the conditions that were originally put in were that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with a legal description acceptable to the registrar of the subject property, together with a copy of the reference plan, if applicable, for use for the issuance of the certificate of consent. The next one was that the owner provides the lawyer's undertaking to the satisfaction of the city, and further forwards a copy of all documentation confirming the transaction has been carried out. And that the document is to be provided within 2 years of the issuance of the consent certificate or prior to the issuance of a building permit, whichever occurs first. The third is that a final certificate fee of $190 be payable to the city of Thorold, be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, and that all conditions of consent be fulfilled. 4, that the payment of 5% of the value of the new lot, being part 1 as illustrated on figure 2, be made to the city of Thorold in lieu of dedication of land for park purposes. 5, that the applicant obtains a minor variance approval from the Committee of Adjustment for section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw for the reduction of the minimum rear yard setback. And 6, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the confirmation that all taxes are paid prior to the issuance of the certificate. So I believe what George has put a motion saying is that he is making a motion to approve the consent application with condition 5 being amended to say that it removed and that another one be added in its place, saying that the applicant obtains a rezoning approval from council for section 7.2 in regards to the rear yard setback.
George, I will second that motion.
Mr. Ravenek, go ahead.
It's a good motion.
Mr.
Okay.
Ravenek, go ahead.
I'm if by wording it that way, are we restricting the applicant's options because they obviously have the option of doing a demolition on the addition, which we've approved in the past, where there have been additions that were affecting a severance and the applicant severed or demolished the addition off the existing building. And then of course there's the appeal avenue as well.
So are you suggesting, Mr. Ravenek, that we just remove condition number 5? Is that the intent of your motion?
Yeah, and that the applicant find a remedy to the variance deficiency on the existing property.
So through the chair, we can remove number 5, but we'll have to put in something to some sort of manner saying that the rear yard setback has to be remedied, whether by changes to the building permit, building, or rezoning. In Julianne, I believe, has her hand up.
Where's Julianne? I can't find her square. There you are, Julianne. Go ahead.
I'm on the Hollywood Square that's right beside
Oh
me.
gosh,
So-
my old eyes can't
All right.
find the 21 square.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, no disrespect, I was trying to make light of the situation here, but
Yeah, me too.
no, I just wanted to say, yeah, we can work on some wording with respect to that condition. The key thing is to remedy the rear yard non-compliance. So there are a number of ways of doing that. As George indicated, a portion of the building could be removed. I don't know whether that's an option, but that's an option. Another option would be a zone change, and another option would be the variance, which we've dealt with the variance today. However, if we leave it open-ended and say that somehow that situation, that condition has to be dealt with prior to the severance being complete, then that leaves the client, the applicant with some options in terms of how to deal with that, and they have 2 years to deal with that, whether or not they seek a zone change, or whether the application is appealed, or whether or not something on site changes, such as the building footprint, and becomes then in compliance with the zoning. Then all you're dealing with today is the creation of a lot that both the severed and the retained comply with the zoning.
Mr. Ravener.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That basically we're going to inject for number 5, that a remedy to the
non-compliance of the rear
setback
yard.
deficiency, yeah,
Setback deficiency, yeah.
be addressed.
So this will go back to council now, George?
Megan's going to write this down and read it back to you, George.
Okay.
Not necessarily, Mr. Pizzo.
So through the chair, we will remove number 5. Julianne and Nicolette might help me come up with the wording, but it will be along the manner of that the applicant finds a manner to remedy the rear yard setback that is not meeting section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw. I don't know from Julianne's standpoint if we want to specifically say through which manners to do it, or just leave it open-ended.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that it be left open-ended.
No.
And it provides options for Mr. Rowe and his client, and they have 2 years to figure it out. If they decide to come back and seek a zone change, that's something that is dealt with separately, and will go to council to answer Mr. Pizzo's question. If they decide to remove a building, they don't need to go to council. The lot will be created, and he'll have to satisfy all other conditions that are listed on that the form that we saw before, conditions 1 through 6. So.
And if they're not met within 2 years, it
lapses.
It lapses.
Yeah.
Mr. Ravener, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that motion?
Second that.
Second.
Mr. Pizzo seconded it. Committee members, further questions, comments?
I have
Seeing
none.
none, all in favor of the motion? All in favor of the motion, please vote. Opposed to the motion? Mr. Dean is opposed. Thank you, folks. That was a difficult one. All right, Nicolette, are you on for 29N as well?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, presenting for you another consent application for the creation of a lot for residential development at 29 Ann Street. In this situation, the lands are again within the urban living area designation of the city of Thorold. And it is also located within the Thorold Center Community Improvement Area. So I make note that within this community improvement area, the official plan states that it encourages and supports redevelopment proposal for existing service sites or the conversion of existing buildings for intensification. Intensification shall mean the development of a property at a higher density than currently exists that is not permitted by the zoning bylaw, and or when one or more of the zone provisions, such as setbacks, frontage, or lot coverage provisions are modified to facilitate construction of the proposed use. So in this area, your official plan specifically states that we should be looking at intensification. These are opportunities for intensification. The lands are zoned R2S residential second density special under the existing comprehensive zoning bylaw 2140/97. So I'm sure you've all reviewed the report in detail. There is one minor correction on page 1 of the report where we're requesting reduction of the front yard setback to a dwelling in the R2S zone. It should be from 7.5 meters to 4 meters. Once again, the application before you has an existing house with a proper driveway. The proposed lot will have the effect of allowing for a building envelope for a 2-story dwelling with a proper driveway and attached garage. So we are in support of the application, subject to, again, the conditions provided. And I'm happy to answer any questions along with my colleague, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolette. Now, who is presenting on behalf of this application, please?
I am, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll get to you in a minute. Megan has interrupted me here. Oh, there we go.
Sorry for
That's okay, Megan. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Sorry for the interruption. I'm just going to read some public comments that came in after the making of the report. So there were 4 public comments and 1 engineering comment that came in after the report. The engineering comment was engineering requires a 4.5 meters by 4.5 meters daylight triangle at the corner of Ann Street and West Street North. Driveways cannot be located within 10 meters of an intersection. So those were the 2 comments that we'll have to consider in terms of the consent application itself. Then the public comments were, so the first one is from Chris, who's on here today. Just indicating that they would like to be in attendance on the Zoom call, and that they would like to speak when the time comes. The next one is from a son of a woman who lives across the street, I believe. Yes. So this one is, my name is Peter. I am writing this document for my mother, who resides at 31 West Street North. She is visibly impaired, I would assume, by these applications. Or actually visibly impaired, maybe in general. This letter also conveys the concerns and complaints that the adjacent and nearby residents have regarding the subject property for the consent and minor variance applications. The initial summary points are: 1, the reduction of the minimum lot area as proposed for lot 1 by approximately 40% is not a minor variance. In addition, the proposed minimum lot reduction for lot 2, approximately 58%, is not a minor variance. This should not be included in this minor variance application. The proposed dwelling is an overbuilt for the proposed parcel land. 3, the proposed dwelling is seriously encroached on the privacy of the neighbor given the closeness and height. 4, there is very little land for either home to enjoy amenities of a backyard. 5, the fact that a 3 meter easement has been given to the existing dwelling so that the backyard of the existing dwelling can be accessed. Supports the proposed dwelling on the proposed reduced minimum lot area is an overbuilt and requested variance is significant. Is this the definition of intensification as noted in the regional plan, provincial policy statement, and City of Thorold official plan? I would doubt it very much. 6, regardless of any decision the committee makes regarding the subject land, we do not want the proposal and decision to set a precedent for further builds in the area. Any decision and land studies, etc., should be specific to just this existing lot. 7, we believe that the objective of intensification of a neighborhood is misunderstood. There is no definition of neighborhood. Is it a radius of 100 meters or 1,000 meters? We believe that the higher the radius, the less impact this dwelling has on the area. The neighborhood should be defined by the relatively small radius impacting the immediate residents, not those several blocks away. 8, proposed dwelling does not complement or is compatible in any way the existing home in the immediate area of 29 Ann Street. There are only 2 two-story homes south of Ann Street on Albert Street, the existing dwelling and an apartment across the street. 9, we do not see any parking space on the existing dwelling after the existing driveway was used for the proposed dwelling. 10, we feel using a driveway to build such a proposed dwelling is simply creativity in order to generate profits, not to enhance the neighborhood and not to attempt to help the City of Thorold meet its official plan. We have not seen any update reports as to how existing development in the city since the plan was issued have complied or not complied with the plan and what changes the plan are required. And then it lists several sections of the city official plan where it's wondering about, which is A2 1.2 regarding affordable housing, A2 4.2 defining what a neighborhood is and character, B 1.1.3 intensification it's wondering about. And it finalizes by saying, we hope that you will take our point into consideration and deny this application. And
Mr.
then,
Chairman,
Mr. Pizzo, do you have a?
I have a question. Isn't there a cutoff period for these complaints? Is there no cutoff period, Megan?
on the way that the notices have been, the notice of the hearing have been historically written, it doesn't seem to indicate when to get the notes in by to get onto the report. It just says to get the notes in by 4 p.m. Yesterday, so that then they can be read in and circulated.
Mr. Chairman, I always thought it was the Friday before the meeting. It was a cutoff date.
No, I think we've accepted these letters in the past, I think.
Well, this is ridiculous. I mean, I would just like to think of one of our members who digested everything she said. Impossible.
Thank you.
And those are all the comments.
Thank you, Megan. I think Mr. Pizzo's comments are well taken, and maybe there should be a cutoff date of the week before for committee members. Again, who speaks on behalf of this application?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
Daniel
Mr. Mako. Do you have anything to add?
I do. I have a presentation to present to the committee, if you'll permit me to share my screen.
You are able to.
Thank you. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Terrific. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you to address comments and concerns regarding this application. My name is Daniel Romanko. I'm a professional planner with Better Neighborhoods. We're here on behalf of the applicant and owner, and I'd like to take you through what the proposed development is all about. So I think most are aware of where the location of the site is. It's in the downtown area of the city of Thorold, which makes it ideal for an infill and intensification type project because it's close to walkable amenities such as the grocery store, the bus terminal, and the Front Street and Pine Street. This is images of the existing dwelling. The first one on the top left is taken from Ann Street, which is the existing house frontage, and it's 1920s era house, somewhere around that. It's a little beaten up, but otherwise still lovable. The other shot in the lower left corner is the view from West Street North, and you can see it's not as friendly to the sidewalk and pedestrian realm because of the driveway and the fencing, but nevertheless, fairly empty, vacant piece of the property. So the property sits somewhat underutilized within close proximity to the downtown. What you see here is the consent sketch for the proposed development, part one being the retained lot, the property I was just referring to in terms of where the location of the existing house is, and part two is the proposed severed lot. So what we're looking to do is create a modest two-story single detached dwelling of approximately 440 square feet on this newly created lot. We're looking to preserve the existing mature tree, which I don't know if you can see my cursor, sits right about here. It's quite a lovely tree. And we're going to provide additional housing to the neighborhood along with some other options. We believe that the proposed development is compatible with the character of the neighborhood and the way we've designed it in a manner that the front door and porch will address the street, thus providing an enhanced landscape or streetscape rather. Variances required on the first lot are the minimum lot area reduction. And we believe that despite the reduction, there's still ample opportunity to provide for parking along with the amenity space, which is currently being used, which in the side yard, the exterior side yard fronting West Street North, where the deck is shown, and the enclosure of the fence. We also require a minimum rear yard setback to create the new lot from 6 meters to 0 meters, which would put the new property line essentially on the wall of the addition that's on the existing dwelling. Variances required for lot 2 include also a minimum lot area reduction to create the lot. We require a front yard setback to the porch reduction from 3 meters to 2.2, reduction of the minimum front yard setback from the dwelling of 7.5 to 4, and a reduction of the frontage from 15 to 13.6. We also are looking for a reduction in the minimum north and side yard setbacks from 1.5 to 1.2, and a reduction of the rear yard setback from 6 to 5.4. It's questionable whether we actually need the reduction of the minimum rear yard setback to the deck from 4.5 to 3. We're showing a deck height of 1.4. We could probably manage to get that to under 1.2 in height and thus not require that. So I just wanted to mention that even though it's being requested, it's something that we could live without. As the committee is aware, we're straddling zoning provisions for both the older and the newer approved bylaws. So I thought it would be helpful to provide the committee with a matrix showing what the requests were from both the old and the new bylaws and what the asks are. So from a lot area perspective, the old and the ask of the committee in terms of our application is 550 square meters. However, the new bylaw would be requiring only a reduction from 325 square meters. Similar with the frontage, under the new bylaw, we would, under the, once the new bylaw would be approved, we wouldn't be requesting the lot frontage for that. But at the present time, 15 meters is what we're requesting a reduction from. And front yard setback, similar type of reduction is much smaller here. There's no front yard setback or no applicable setback to the porch, but the new zoning bylaw does have general provisions in force in effect, and therefore we're requesting a reduction from 3 to 2.2. Interior side yard presently remains at 1.5. While we could probably live with that, it does shrink the envelope and livable space for the proposed dwelling. 1.2 is in the new bylaw, and that's what our request is of the committee today. The rear yard setback in the old bylaw is 6, it's moving to 7.5, and we're requesting 0 on the retained lot and 5.4 on the proposed. And again, the rear deck, the old bylaw would permit the deck at 3 meters. However, the new bylaw, being under the general provisions, does require 4.5. Therefore, that's the request that we're making today. I did want to take the committee to some comparables within the neighborhood in terms of the lot sizing, the lot fabric, the frontages that are already there. This has been prepared by the planner and MHBC in support of our application. And you can see there's a number of smaller sized properties with smaller frontages within that neighborhood. This is kind of what they look like. So 30 Ann Street, 257 square meters. The one next door to it, 257 as well. Those are right opposite the street. 33 Ann Street, 286, and 27 Ann Street, 337. So relatively small, comparable lot areas. We're in very close proximity to this proposed lot severance. Similarly, we're looking for a reduced setback to the frontage, and we have other examples within the neighborhood that demonstrate this in a 2-story format. 33 West Street, 3.8, 25 Ann Street at 3.3, 35 West Street at 3.3 as well. And then when we get into the frontage, we also have other examples found within the neighborhood that perform in a similar way. 30 Ann Street, 28 Ann Street, 37 West Street, and 21 Ann Street. I trust everyone can read those frontages on that. In addition to the supporting policy from the provincial policy statement and the regional official plan, which support intensification where in urban areas where existing services already exist. There is other support from the Thorold official plan. We believe it meets the objectives for affordable housing, reinforcing the downtown business community, encouraging intensification within proximity of the downtown in accordance with policy A212. It is a permitted use, of course, in policy B112. The official plan encourages infill in urban areas, policy B113, and it's our opinion that it meets the criteria for lot creation in policy D42.1. The zoning, of course, permits the proposed use, and it's our opinion that this application meets the 4 tests for variance, that it does meet the intended purpose of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. We believe that this proposed development is a desirable use for the neighborhood, and it's an appropriate development for this underutilized property within the urban area. And then in addition to that, the minor variances that are being requested in terms of degree of impact are minor in nature as well. The proposed development maintains the character of the neighborhood. It adds to the existing housing supply need that everyone's facing in the region. It's preserving the existing house and the tree. It's making efficient use of the underutilized yacht, and it's able to connect to existing services. There's no requests for variance to parking or height, and we can accommodate all of the required parking and landscaping requirements, including the amenity spaces. The proposed development will improve the walkability, and there's no perceived drainage issues as a result of what we're proposing here. I'd be happy to answer any questions of the committee and or neighbors. So I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Romanko. To the committee members, questions, comments to Mr. Romanko at this time?
Don, I just have a comment.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Okay, I just have a comment. It's not really a question, but I have to say I'm concerned with the size of the 2 lots that are going to be created. Both of them are right around 50%. One's a little under, one's a little over, but that is a concern with me. I don't know what problems that could create with parking and any other issues, but I just wanted to put that out there that I'm a little uncomfortable with the lot size.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Further questions or comments from the committee members?
I'd like to ask the planner a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Mr. Pizzo.
On page 7, Nicolette, could you bring up page 7 of your report, Nicolette?
I think she's looking.
So Megan, if you have the ability to pull up the report, I don't think there is.
Do you want it shared on the screen?
You just want to discuss it? Yes.
That's it.
Go ahead. I've got my page 7 open.
Okay, we talk about minor variances. Part 1 retains, reduce the minimum lot area from 550 to 309. It's a 43% decrease. Reduction in the rear yard is 6 to 0. That's 100%. Now going to severed, reduction in minimum lot size from 550 to 233 is 57 points. Reduction of the front yard setback is 26.6. Reduction of the minimum frontage is 9.37. Reduction of the minimum interior yard setback is 20%. The reduction of the minimum rear yard setback to a deck from 4.5 to 3 is 33%. Aren't these percentages high, mate?
Yes, in the manner you're reviewing it. However, I'm going to draw your attention once again to the official plan, which describes how the term minor should be used in dealing with minor variances. And this is something you should be very aware of, because if this goes to LPAT, this is what they will be looking at. So minor is the degree of impact which could result from the relief, and less regard to the magnitude of the numeric or absolute relief sought by the applicant. So in this situation, the applicant has done a very good job of illustrating that we can provide a proper amenity space for the new and existing dwelling. We can provide parking that complies with the zoning bylaw. we can provide, we can provide proper drainage and setback opportunities from adjacent lands in order to address any kind of drainage or access issues. So while the lot areas, the variances look major in terms of numbers, we're looking, you have to look at the orientation of the buildings, the yards that are provided. Maybe they're not in the rear yard, but they are located on a side yard situation. We have to be a little bit flexible in these situations. They don't meet the zoning bylaw, and that's why we're here today. We also have to recognize that you're in a community improvement area where intensification in your official plan is directed. So again, that numeric analysis of the minor variances is not appropriate. It's the effect and the impact. And again, our client has come up with a very good intensification proposal where these residences are desirable and have sufficient yards and parking, etc. So I think some rethinking has to be done here.
Thank you, Nicolette.
There hasn't been a house.
Julianne would also like to add to my.
Oh, Julianne, you're
my
in
little
the
hand.
square. Okay. Go ahead, Julianne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to bounce off of what Nicolette has said, yes, it is not a numbers game. We have to look at the overall total impact of this proposal. What I wanted to say about Mr. Romanko's presentation is that he demonstrated that a modestly sized house was being proposed on a lot that is also a little bit more of a modest size. So it's not like you have a monster home on a very tiny lot. That's one other point. The other point that I wanted to mention is something else that Mr. Romanko had indicated. Although the new zoning bylaw is not yet in effect, it was very clear from the matrix that Mr. Romanko provided was that the direction in the new zoning bylaw is that certainly lot areas and frontages are going to be smaller. And the reason why many municipalities are doing that is because we've been directed by the province to accommodate growth in our built up areas. And so built up areas means the areas that already have development there. They're not like suburban areas of the city. So therefore, just demonstrating that there is a transition or a paradigm shift in thinking in terms of, what is an adequate lot area and frontage is happening already. Although your council hasn't approved the zoning bylaw, this is what is being moved forward. Because this is what the direction that we've received from the province. I just wanted to mention that. Yes, right now the current zoning regulations are a bit larger and the requirements are a bit larger, but moving forward, the direction is not that. Just wanted to give that to the committee members for information.
But it's not here
Thank
yet.
you. It's not in effect yet.
Right.
No,
It's not in effect yet. That's correct.
Valid
Thank
point.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Julianne. Mr. D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate when we speak of numerics of the impacts, say don't look at it specifically at the numerics of this, that it's a large variance, but you also have to look at the surrounding areas and the impact of the neighborhood. When you're putting up a two-story house at its location, now you're blocking the view of the neighbor right beside it on Ann Street. He'll have no southern sun come afternoon time because his whole backyard will be covered by a two-story building. So, and also the height of where this land is situated, you're putting another house into a location that has had traditionally some water and sewer issues down the street on Broderick, where there's been a lot of flooding and sewer basement backup. So again, now you're impacting the whole neighborhood, not just this one little area. Yes, that house won't experience it, but someone down the hill, when you look at the elevations, will be experiencing that. You described it as not a monster home, but if it's not a monster home and this proposed home doesn't even meet the new zoning requirements of the 325 square meters, like to me, if this is such an ideal situation, they should be able to put everything together on that property without asking for a variance. Because all we're going to do here is reduce this to the situation that everyone's going to put a house on their front lawn because they have ample space to do that in the city of Thorold. How can you go from the rear yard setback from 6 to 0 and say that doesn't impact anybody? It's going to impact the new neighbor, and it's going to impact the person who's living at the other house. So I have a lot of grave concerns with this. I know the province wants intensification, but the province doesn't live. The person who's saying that on their documents doesn't live on Ann Street. They should move to Ann Street and then tell me about intensification. I'm going to go on record here. I'm not supporting this application at this time. I think there's too many variances and they're not minor in nature. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. Further questions or comments from committee members? I think George has left the meeting. Anything else from Mr. Jackson, Mr. Pizzo?
I have none, John. I've said my piece.
Thank you.
I
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
just like quit hearing about this new zoning. It's been going on for 25 years. I don't know when it's ever going to be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzo.
There's a couple people from the public here.
Are there people from the public that would like to speak? I see none.
Ariana, I believe it's Chuck, her father has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chuck.
Hi, my name's Chuck Cario. We reside on 30 West Street North, which is to the right of the proposed lot, the lot being severed. I've got several disagreements with it. I got several questions too. We've lived here for close to 25 years. We tore down the old house that was here. It was unsavable. We built a new house 15 years ago. Our house is full of windows. And when we sit in our dining room right now, we can see across to the big maple tree on the corner. We can see the old Century home there, the red brick, plenty of sunlight, trees, birds, animals. Number one, if this building goes up, then we see nothing but a wall that'll be about 1.5 feet closer than it would be without the variance or with the variance. The front setback would set off the whole straight line of the neighborhood on this side of West Street, not on the other side of West Street, as Mr. Romenko showed us. All the houses are pretty much in line, plus or minus 3 or 4 feet. Right now, the house, the red brick house beside us, is a rental. And I feel if there's a 0 setback on the back of that house, then both properties will remain rentals. The new house would be unsaleable just for that purpose. And again, we would have parking issues like we do now down the other side of the street. There are 5 properties there now that are rentals to students and workers and whatnot, young people, cars parked on top of each other almost. In the morning when I go out, I hear hit and runs. I see kids or even adults almost being hit on the street because of the lack of parking. If these 2 houses go forward like this, there'd be enough room for 1 car on each property, and any overflow parking, people, kids growing up, whatever, students, renters would have to park out on the street, creating more of an issue. I don't know if that helps with anything. Being a direct neighbor here, when I walk out my front door, I look down, I see a maple tree. I can see the intersection. I can see beyond Ann Street down West Street. House goes up, I'll see a wall. I don't know what else to say. If anybody has any questions, I do have some comments for Mr. Romenko, if I could speak with him. And I think that's pretty much it for now.
Thank you. If you have a question for Mr. Romanko, you could use this time to ask it.
Okay, he showed it, Mr. Romanko, you showed us photos of houses on the other side of Ann Street, on the north side of Ann Street. How come you didn't show us photos of houses on the south side of West Street? From our house down. Our house it's about 1,200 square foot house. We've got a large property, but you didn't show that. I wish you would have showed that, and that would give more of a picture of what this neighborhood would look like had this large structure being shoved into a small lot.
Mr. Romanko, why didn't you show pictures that would defeat your argument?
Well,
go ahead, Mr. Romanko.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, the photos that we showed were really just to demonstrate that the performance of smaller lots is achievable for the existing homes within the neighborhood. And, you know, if I can perhaps just take this opportunity to address some of the other concerns that were raised. We can't always protect views, and there's no legislative requirement to do so, but we were very sensitive to the placement and location of the house vis-a-vis the view and impact of, and I believe you're at number 30, in terms of being able to view the street from the front of the home. I don't believe there's maybe one or two home windows on the north side, and I did want to make that clarity about which direction was north, because I think one of the other committee members had perhaps not understood that correctly in terms of the shading or shadowing impact. But the north side is Ann Street in terms of the orientation of this property. But we were sensitive, and we jogged the garage back to provide that view shed out towards the street. We are providing 2 parking spaces on the new proposed lot, so we're providing parking that's required, not just a single space, as I think you suggested. And the orientation of the house in alignment with the street does actually, even though it perhaps doesn't align with the remainder of the homes south of the street, it does align quite well with the existing tree, which is a very important visual aid in terms of that concern about alignment. So I trust I've answered your questions. Here, back to you, Mr. Chair.
I do have 4 windows on the side of our house that from various angles where I'm standing looking at that tree, it will be totally disappeared, and the red brick house won't be seen. All there will be probably a vinyl sided wall.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Chris from the public has his hand up.
I don't see Chris. There's Chris. Go ahead, Chris. You have to unmute yourself there, sir.
That better?
That's better. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I'm pretty well, everybody's already stole my thunder. The big thing I have a problem with is the parking. It's a huge problem already on my street, which is Ann Street. And he showed a picture of the house on the north side of Ann Street, and you saw how tiny their parking spots are. Okay, I don't even know how they're legal, but I mean, they're very small. That's why we have a parking problem on Ann Street, along with, you've now created with the red brick house, a much smaller parking spot as well. So if he has a guest over, where do they park? You go take a spot on Ann Street that's already being taken by someone that's already visiting somebody on 30 Ann Street or 28 Ann Street. I mean, that to me is the biggest problem. The second biggest problem is the drainage. And I don't care what anyone says, there is a drainage issue already. It's been addressed, I'm sure, by my brother who lives there. And he's already made his comments to Megan. Megan's already probably read them out. I may have missed them because I was away. But that's my 2 biggest problems. And my third big problem is I have a problem that once this is done, and those renters lose all that area they're losing because he's making this new property, they go leave. Does this gentleman now decide, well, I'm gonna tear this down and build a new one right here? Because we've already gotten the okay for this one. I could do the same thing right here. This is my concern. And the carbon footprint can't be good with creating a larger house and taking away all that green space, can it? Anyone want to address that, Mr. Romenko? Anyone? Hello?
I see no one.
Is it
needing to
incumbent,
address it.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I can address those.
All right, Mr. Romanko, you go ahead, sir.
Thanks for the opportunity, and thank you for your comments, Mr. Savoya. With regard to the drainage, I think, as was sort of mentioned earlier, we will have to provide approved grading plans prepared by an engineer and approved by the city of Thorold at the building permit stage to address any of those such concerns. The parking concern that you mentioned with respect to the existing, we are showing only a one parking space off of West Street at the moment, but there is enough room, I think, to arguably extend that and have two parallel spaces if there is such a need. I wouldn't suggest developing that without that need present, because we're just taking up landscaping. But if the
need's already present, sir. I mean,
don't Chris, don't jump in.
Okay,
if it is deemed a requirement, there is ample room on the property. That's what I'm saying, that can accommodate a second vehicle. And there's two spaces, as I mentioned before, on the existing on the proposed rather. So there, in terms of parking, we're not asking for any relief, and we don't believe that we're going to be burdening the neighborhood with any additional parking demand as a result of this proposed. And the intent of this application, I just wanted to draw back to your last comment about removing the existing dwelling, is we do value this home, and we think it's even though it's not on a registered heritage building, it does have some historic heritage value, and there is no intention to remove this building at any point in time. In fact, I think the current owner has already done some renovations to it. So,
thank you, Mr. Romanko. Mr. Savoy.
yes, just rebut what he said there about space for the second parking spot, if need be, for the existing property. How close is that tree to your existing driveway that you're going to put there as proposed? For the existing property, what is for lot? Well, there's no lot number because it's already there. The one where the tree is on that side, where you're putting the smaller parking spot and you have a front deck showing there, how much can you bring that over before that tree becomes a problem?
Mr. Romanko.
through you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to share a screen and show the site plan. I don't have a dimension, I think, with respect to what you're asking, but I think it's quite clear from this diagram here, our site plan. Is this the tree you're referring to, and this is the parking space?
Correct.
What I was suggesting to you earlier is there's room here in head of it in tandem fashion to permit that parking. And we do have restrictions. I mean, I think we're well within them to avoid providing a driveway access off of West Street from the corner. So that shouldn't be a problem to even get us a second parallel space on there, but it would be my preference to do the tandem arrangement if necessary.
And there's enough room back there to add it, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to say, I'm sorry, I forgot to say it before, is it's dwarfing my house to basically, you just got all these giants just coming into my yard and I have nothing left. I mean, that's the only spot that's open for us, some light from that area. So basically, when you put a big house there, that whole west side is gone. There's going to be no view for anything for myself on that west side. And then, of course, I have the eyesore, which is the apartment building on the left side. So to me, you're basically forcing me to either A, or, tear down my building and make a big building like you guys have. So it's going to be congruent with the rest of the area in that corner, or else basically sell and hope I don't lose the value of the house because of the area. I mean, I think that my house will depreciate in value immensely because of that other house being put there. And I still have the fear that they're going to do something with that corner lot, regardless of what Mr. Romenko said, all due respect. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy. We appreciate your time. Let's bring it back to the committee members as I see no more public comments. Committee members. Mr. D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going back to the parking issue, just so it's clear, on my other computer here, I did a Google map search, and at this present time on the picture here, there's 4 vehicles parked in the existing house and 3 parked on Ann Street. So parking is an issue around that neighborhood. But the one thing that I think is wrong on there's a sketch. I don't know if that could be put up on Megan, if you could put that sketch up on your screen. Just so it's clear, there's with the existing property, it says existing driveway. Well, there's no existing driveway there right now. That's a proposed driveway. So I think the sketch needs to be corrected because the existing driveway is where the house is going to be, the proposed house is. If you look at the pictures, you'll see there's a fence right along there. So there is no parking there. I just think it's important to have correct factual information presented. So if someone who's responsible for that should alter that sketch so it's correct. I just want, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can just interject, I think that is shown because there's existing curb cuts for those driveways. If you do zoom in on Google Maps, you can see the existing curb cuts where the driveways. So there's no change in those curb cuts, and I think that's the only thing that was trying to be demonstrated there.
Well, but it's an existing curb cut, but doesn't mean it's an existing driveway. So the sketch is incorrect. If you want to put existing curb cuts there, then it's more accurate. That's the point I'm making on that. I just think parking is an issue there because there's no parking on half of West Street. There's no parking on half of Ann Street. And when I did my site visit, I came from Pine Street. I came up Ann Street, and there was vehicles parked on Ann Street. So I was able to get through, but the car coming towards me had to actually stop and allow me through because there wasn't enough space to get 2 vehicles through there with the cars parked on the street. So, and there's a school just around the corner there. I'm not sure which way the buses go, but parking is an issue there. It's nice to hear, though, that if this proposal does go through, that 4 parking spots are replacing the 4 that are being taken away. But I think you're going to be creating more of a parking issue in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo.
The agent had his hand up.
I don't see it.
Oh, it just shows on my screen. Daniel has his hand up.
Daniel, did you have a comment on that comment or something?
I did, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, I missed it.
I did just want to say that I'm not 100% certain that the existing driveway notation, I mean, in this, you appreciate this consent sketch was prepared by the surveyor, is related to the driveway. I mean, there certainly is an existing curb cut there and in both locations, but existing and driveway appear to be different typefaces. And so when you look at the proposed driveway, they're consistent. So I'm not 100% sure that existing isn't even referring to the tree. And they just happen to be coincidental in terms of their location. So I did just want to, raise that point with to the committee in terms of clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Romanko. Committee members. Oh, Megan, you have your hand up?
Through the chair, if we're moving towards a motion, I would suggest we make an individual motion. So lot 1 that had the 2 variances and that has the existing house. So if we make a minor variance motion for that, then a minor variance motion for lot 2 with the 8 minor variances, and then a motion for the consent application.
That's a good point, Megan. We have to do these things separately for clarity. So let's do 13, 17, 22 first, shall we, folks? Can we have a motion?
You know, I don't know why nobody wants to make motions on this committee, but I'll make a motion that we turn down this application, put it on the table. If anybody wants to second it or change it, let's get going here.
I think Mr. D'Angelo is anxious
Yeah.
to second that.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. I'm just looking for clarity because I have the reports in front of me, but 13, 17, is that the proposed or is that the existing?
That's the existing. So that has the 2 reductions for lot area and rear yard setback.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm voting on the correct item. Thank you.
That's a good thing to know. Questions and comments from the committee? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion? That is passed, which means 13, 17 is denied. 13, 18 on the proposed lot. Mr. D'Angelo?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that application D13-18202 be denied based on review of the pertinent information and comments presented at the hearing, having conducted a site visit, and for the reasons stated, for having having conducted a site visit, and for the comments stated during the meeting.
That's a very good motion, Mr. D'Angelo. Can I have a seconder?
I can second that, John.
Mr. Jackson, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Thank you. Now we'll go on to D. Megan?
So for the last one, Mr. D'Angelo indicated for site visit and for comments today, but were there for both the 13-17 and then 13-18, was there of the 4 tests of the minor variance, which ones would you indicate that it is not meeting for the just for the record?
Well, for my interpretation of the minor variance, it's not a minor variance. Again, if you need specifics, 6 to 0 is not minor. And then when you're talking with the current zoning bylaw, when you're reducing the severed lands to by 58% and then 44% on the retained lot, like the lot itself doesn't even meet the 550 currently, and now we're subdividing it into 2 smaller lots at this present time.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo.
Is that sufficient?
I think it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. D10-15, which is the consent application.
I can make a motion. Oh,
Through the chair, we can do what we did before in terms of changing conditions or not. If we do end up wanting to do a positive vote on it, a condition for engineering would have to be added.
Mr. Jackson?
yes, we can. I'd like to make a motion based on the review of the applicant comments made at this hearing and having conducted a site view, I would like to make a motion of non-approval.
Do we have a seconder for that motion, please? Mr. D'Angelo? Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Ravenek. All in favor of the motion to deny this application? Thank you very much. That concludes the application for 29 Ann Street. Thank you, everyone, for your time. We move on to 77 Welland Street South now. Nicolette, is that you again?
I'm here.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Just pulling up my new report. One moment. Notes. Okay, so 77 Welland Street. In this instance, our applicant is Emma Zach. Again, we are within the urban living area designation in the city of Thorold. And again, we're in the Thorold community improvement area. I'm just sorry to interrupt, but we're getting some feedback on people with their microphones not muted, and it's a bit distracting. So if anyone who's not speaking could kindly turn off their microphones. Thank you. So again, we're in the Thorold Center Community Improvement Area, which encourages and supports redevelopment proposals for areas in existing serviced sites and conversion of existing buildings for intensification. Intensification means the development of a property at a higher density than currently exists that is not permitted by the zoning bylaw. And when one or more of the zoning provisions, such as setbacks, frontage, or lot coverage provisions, are modified to facilitate construction of the proposed use. Megan, I'm wondering if you can pull up the severance sketch for this application. So in this instance, we're creating a new lot for single detached residential purposes. This is a very irregularly shaped lot, basically in the form of a triangle. And so we're a residential dwelling is currently under construction on part 3 of the sketch. So a building permit has been approved for that. Then we are creating 2 lots, one for a new residential dwelling, and part 1 is going to be conveyed to the city of Thorold in order to allow Welland Street South to have a proper turning bulb connection at the end of the street there. So that is the intention. We are looking for minor variances for the existing retained lands for lot area, lot frontage, front yard setback, and minimum interior side yards, because we were doing 2-story dwellings. On the severed lands, we're looking for reductions from the lot frontage, lot area, front yard setback, and minimum rear yard setbacks. So in this instance, we have lots that are a very irregular shape. Again, we have to consider the individual considerations of the lot size and the configuration of the lot. We have to look at whether the impact of the minor variances are indeed minor, or whether the yards can be accommodated in less than traditional fashion. So we are in support of this application. I draw your attention once again to the fact that the client is, or the applicant is conveying lands that were not previously provided to the city for a proper turnaround. So previously we had a very kind of unsafe condition where there was no turning permissions for emergency vehicles, etc. And because of this application, that will now be addressed. So we are in support of this application, subject to the conditions listed in the report. And I believe the applicant is here to speak as well. Thank you.
Do you have comments received?
So through the chair, there are 3 comments that came in after the fact. One is Hydro One, and they have no comments or concerns. The second is from the City of Thorold's engineering. The sanitary system must be extended to the frontage of the new property. This must be designed and stamped by an engineer. The second one is the roadway must be extended with a proper turning basin / hammerhead that must be designed and stamped by an engineer. 3, water services must be brought to the new property line, and all approvals in construction must be completed prior to the consent approval. So that'd be with after you, if consent was approved tonight, it's conditional upon all of this being done and the other conditions. Then there was only one public comment that came in. The public comment indicated that they wanted to, that says, I wanted to let you know that due to work, I'm unable to attend the hearing. However, I did want to voice my opinion on this matter. I am not in agreement with this decision for various reasons. It appears they want to build another house. The amount of noise pollution created from the renovations has been very distracting as I continue to work from home, and it has been a nuisance since they started, and now they want to build another house, which will take even more time and more noise pollution. Additionally, there are several trees there which I imagine would need to be cut down, but I strongly believe that we should try to keep nature as is and not distract it by killing more trees. On top of that, the house they currently built is an eyesore, and it is the largest house in the whole neighborhood and sticks out like a sore thumb. Anyways, I'm not sure if my opinion will get anywhere, but I wanted to thank you and the town for inviting me to the hearing, but like I said, due to employment, I am unable to attend.
Thank you, Megan. Who speaks on behalf of this application, please? If you could identify yourself and unmute yourself.
My name is Emma Chak, and I am the owner of this property.
Welcome, Emma.
I would like to give you a quick overview or history of this property. It is on lots 9, 10, and 11. According to this survey from, I don't know if you can see it, from 1912, there are 8 properties here. They were all 40 feet wide. This side was never built because the canal and the railway came here. When the decision about the railway from St. Catharines to Niagara Falls was made, this curve was created and the land was expropriated from the owners then. So that's why the lots now look like that. That's why the curve is there, because the railway and the bridge was built on the canal, a twin bridge, and that is not there anymore, as we all know. As I mentioned, all the lots were 40 feet wide. But 2 of the owners during the 60s or 70s set out and bought up 8, 10 feet of parcel of land from the neighbors. So 2 of the lots that was not showed the area before. So 2 of the 7 lots in the on the street here are smaller than the lot I'm proposing. I bought this land as 7577 Welland Street South. That is the municipal address. So it was a double lot or triple lot once upon a time before expropriation. Before I built the house, the city dumped some gravel here on my lot beside my neighbors, and that was where garbage trucks and any delivery trucks could turn around. During the preliminary hearing, I was told that I needed to build a turnaround for these vehicles because it was not safe for them to back up all the way on the street. So for this reason, I should give up Part 3 to the city, but I still would have a 14.27 meter frontage for a new house. This property line actually sets back from the sidewalk 3 to 5 meters. So while I'm going for reduction to 6 meter, in the driveway should be 6 meter from the property line, there is an additional 3 to 5 meter from the sidewalk. I would have a double driveway, so I would have enough parking lot, and I would also have an attached garage as I have at 75 Valence Street South as well. So I would not add to, wouldn't be a burden to parkings. I would not add to that problem. I would solve the acute problem of turning around for garbage pickup or any service trucks, fire trucks, whatever. I have to do this on my own expenses. That would cost over $100,000. I'm also giving up land to the city, and the minor variances I thought for the existing house is about inches. Probably the insulation on the house was not taken into consideration, or I don't know what happened. Regarding the neighbor's comments that my house is an eyesore, as I mentioned, there are 7 houses on this street. With the exception of one, all of them were built around the 1930s, 1.5 or 2 story with a hip roof. Although my house is probably 10 feet longer than those houses, I have a garage at the front, an attached garage, but I try to, the character of my house is similar to those houses. It would have been way easier for me to build a gable roof instead of hip roof as the others, but I went with those because I wanted to have a similar, I wanted to blend in. I think what the eyesore is that red brick elevated house from the 70s that is out of line here. So the minor variance that I am most interested is at the corner of my side yard and the backyard. Here I would like to get closer to the side yard, and that impacts the backyard too. But I have nothing in the backyard. It is a railway property. There is a ridge at the property line on that side is 1.5 meter higher than my otherwise wide flat lot. So nothing is around me here. If you ever visited the beer store in Thorold, maybe you can picture the area. The railway goes here. There is a spur line behind me. I got a permission from the railway manager to be 5 meters from the spur line, as there is no traffic on that spur line. They store railway carriages there. Here is the bank of the old railway that went from St. Catharines to Niagara Falls. That is not there anymore. The bridge was taken away, demolished. The piers are at the bank of the canal. So I would not have an impact on anybody with my setbacks. And I would not have a ripple effect either, because that is the end of the road. The tunnel is my next neighbor, or I'm surrounded by railway property. Most likely nothing will be built there, or nobody can come up to build something there. This is what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Megan, did you have something to add?
So member George Revenak sent an email. He was interested in the railway. So during Emma's building permit for her house that's being built / is at the end of being built, during that process, she had to contact Aaron White from GeoRail to get their approval for the setback, as she mentioned. That will also have to be done at the building permit stage if this is approved. So like she contacted GeoRail for her existing house that's being built, she'll have to contact them and have written clarification. So that she'll do a building permit stage. It doesn't impact here. So
Mr. Ravenek, does that answer your query? Mr. Ravenek? You have to unmute, Mr. Ravenek. Mr. Ravenek, we can't hear you.
Okay. Yes, that answers the question. However, I will be, if this is approved, I would be asking that it is a condition that they get written permission or some kind of written documentation from Geo Railway indicating what setback that they want during the building permit process.
Thank you. I think that's an understood. Yes, I see you, Emma. Go ahead.
I think Megan has a copy of the email I received from Mr. White.
So through the chair, if you already have an email, then you'll just be able to provide that at the time if this is approved. So whether you have it or not, Emma, whether it's a written condition or not, it appears you already have it a written condition, so you'll be able to prove it easily. So it doesn't impact you, especially if you already have it. The members just want to make sure it's there. So just
I just wanted to convince. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Pizzo. Mr. Pizzo, you have to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. You're back, Mr. Pizzo. Go ahead.
I got a question. How do you just give land away? Don't you have to do a severance?
So
yeah, so there's.
Go ahead, Nicolette.
Yeah, so
Have severance done on that piece of land?
well, that's what's in front of you today. Part of the set.
You just can't write a letter saying, yeah, okay, you can have the land.
No, one of the conditions of the severance is that the part 2 be conveyed to the city.
So through
Mr. Chairman, I like to see a letter, but I can't agree with that.
So through the chair, like other corner properties, the engineering department usually has a requirement that a daylight savings triangle be transferred to the city. So that's just like this one. So it'd be transfer of land to the city so that a roundabout or a turnaround could be made.
Thank you.
Julianne has her hand.
Oh, Julianne, I keep messing you. Sorry. Go ahead, Julianne, after you unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify for all the committee members information, but especially because Mr. Pizzo raised it. The municipality has the authority under legislation, provincial legislation, to ask for road widenings and what have you. And in this case, this is a similar situation because it's kind of a dead end street. So, and the engineering staff have requested this, and this is completely within the municipality's authority. So I just wanted to answer Mr. Pizzo's question in terms of the land that is being sought for the Hammerhead turnaround.
Thank you, Julianne.
You're welcome.
Well, is there a letter? Is there a formal letter? Somebody comes in, telling us they got permission for the land.
So
I've never heard of this before.
through the chair, there's been other corner properties that there have been consent applications for. In the engineering comments, they asked for a daylight triangle portion of the land, or they asked for a road widening. That comes from the engineering department to the committee as a condition. So this isn't the creation of a new lot. This is the creation of road for the city to own, to merge with the road and increase the size of the turnaround.
So you're saying I've bought side yards, 2 feet, 3 feet. It's always been a severance. So this doesn't have to be a severance. Just give me the land and that's it.
It's a condition that the city's asking for to make the road safer.
Julianne. Julianne?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a consent application. This is a severance application. And not only that, a municipality doesn't require consent in order to obtain land. But as part of a condition of an approval, which is what is before the committee today, the city has the authority to ask for a widening or other such thing, in this case, a turnaround, in order to make the road safer and in order to meet official plan objectives or other things like that that are municipal interests. And in this case, the municipal interest is, of course, to make the dead end street a safer way to turn around when you're coming down that street. So there is no other question.
This would have to come from the city, right? This would have to come from the city, right?
This is coming to the city.
Can we approve it?
As a condition, yes, we can. Amber, do you have something new?
Yes. Something new. I had a preliminary hearing in March, and that was the time when I was told that this was needed. I had to provide a sketch by an engineer showing that trucks could turn around. It is sent by an engineer, certified engineer. I had to show how the trucks could turn around and how much land it was needed. So I have to enter into an agreement with the city that this will be built, and my construction is dependent on this, on my fulfillment of my part of the.
Thank you, Emma. Committee members. Mr. D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Megan, can you just put up this sketch here?
Yeah.
I have a question regarding it.
Yes.
I know in the application, there's a couple setbacks on the current house that's been built, the 1.5 story dwelling under construction. There's a couple setback requests. One was for the frontage, and then one was for the a side yard to reduce it to 1.2. My question is, and I don't know if I'm reading this correctly because the numbers are really small, but the northern side of the house setback is 1.42. So currently that doesn't meet our current zoning standards. Is that correct?
It is 1.3. That's why I went for minor variance for the 7 centimeter or 2 inches, 3 inches.
If the question was going to the planner, Nicolette, could you answer it, please?
That is correct. So the zoning bylaw requires 1.2 meters plus 0.3 meters for each additional story. So for a 2-story, you need 1.5. So we're just shy of that at 1.4. But
Okay,
it still provides enough access, et cetera, for maintenance. So we feel it's appropriate.
But my question to that is, if it's 1.43 right now, the house is being, or has been built, shouldn't it have been 1.5 right from the get-go? Because the other house wasn't even proposed at the time of the building lot application.
Yes.
So,
So through the chair, during the building permit stage, you have the survey. So the building department had their survey and they had a survey sketch of where the house was proposed. I've seen the sketches. It was proposed to meet the setbacks, but during the building of the house and during the inspection stages, it was found to have not met those requirements, which is one of the reasons why the building department is requiring that they require the minor variance for this property. When it was proposed on the sketch, it was proposed to meet the requirements, but during the inspection stage, it was found to be shy and short.
okay, well, then my point is, how come it's not being listed as one of the items to be rectified through a minor variance? The 1.2 is, but not the 1.43. Should that not be part of the minor variance application?
It was part of my
But-
application.
Yeah, so it looks like
wait for us,
I've
please.
missed it on page 1, but in the conditions, it is listed. So
Oh,
it's
is it?
it's listed on page 3. So it's just an oversight, I think.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the summary of.
Yeah,
the
so
report.
I apologize. It is an oversight on that page 1, but it is listed on page 3, which is the more
Okay.
important.
Emma, I see
Well,
you.
but it's disappointing.
Page
Yeah, I know,
3,
it's just
which
disappointing.
lists the conditions and all the variances being requested.
Emma, I see you. Put your hand down.
All right, no, thanks for the clarity on that. Then the other question I had, just to make sure, is there gonna, then I know Megan, you brought up the engineering comments, like, is there gonna be an additional condition that the sanitary and sewer, water extension, road extension, is that part of the conditions of the variance here? And is that gonna be all costs associated with that will be directed to the applicant or the owner of the property?
Through the chair, that will be a requirement from the city that be added on as the conditions.
Okay, so it's,
No.
yeah, it's not listed as one of the 9 right now, but that will be all listed as condition number 10 then?
So sanitary would be possibly condition 10, road widening, condition 2 or 11, and maybe all separate conditions that they have to meet. But yes, the sanitary, the road widening for the hammerhead, and the water services, all of those need to be added on from my standpoint to the consent application as required by the engineering department.
Okay, just the clarity on from the engineering, is there any intention to extend the sidewalk to the full extension of the house?
They have not indicated that as a requirement for the conditions, and I'm not sure what the city's thoughts on that are.
Okay, yeah, I'm surprised that was missed because you would think you would want the sidewalk complete. Can we make that a condition?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if we just have a condition to keep things simple, that the applicant make arrangements with the City Department of Engineering, whatever the official term is, make appropriate financial arrangements for any water sewer connections, extension of sidewalks, any requirements for the Department of Engineering. I think that's a pretty standard request.
Yeah, long as it captures that, so that's, if it's not in there, then someone will say, well, using sidewalk example, if it's not stated in that one condition, then it doesn't get done, because I've seen that around the city quite often.
Seems to be a simple addition. Julianne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to point out, to Megan's earlier point about having them separate conditions, I think it's more appropriate to have them separately so that you can deal with them separately, because although they might be intertwined, it's better to have them as a separate condition so that there's a sign off from the engineering department. With respect to Mr. DeAngela's comment about the sidewalk, good comment, but we should be mindful that if the city has in their official plan or other document that indicates that there's going to be sidewalk extended along there, that would give them the authority. I think there has to be a little bit of flexibility maybe in the wording of that condition to indicate where deemed appropriate or necessary, because I guess the engineering staff, if they didn't ask for it, there might have been a reason for it. I just wanted to bring that up to your attention. So.
Well, my only concern is if we don't get that addressed by the applicant now, what will happen is someone will move into the house, ask for the sidewalk, and then the city will have to pay for it. That's what's going to actually happen.
I agree with you, Mr. D'Angelo. I just thought there should be some flexibility just to make sure that, that engineering has the right permissions and everything under the current policies.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pizzo, did I see you waving there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have to agree with Henry. We want them all written down because they don't get done. I would suggest they all be written down.
Thank you.
Good point, Henry.
Gentlemen, shall we move forward with the three applications? D13-19-2022, the minor variance. Which property is that?
77 Welland Street.
No, the two minor variances. Which one is 77? Which one is the other?
Oh, they're all under that right now.
Okay.
So, but one's 75 and 177.
Yeah,
but I
I
don't.
mean, I don't know which one.
I'm not sure.
Gentlemen, a motion, if you will.
Oh, okay, I'll make a motion that
Thank you, Mr. Ratner.
the minor variance D13-19-2022 and D13, we're doing them together, Megan, or are we doing them separately?
No, let's do them separately, George.
Okay, then which one is the one for the house under construction?
That is. So the one that.
What is D13-19?
Yeah. 13-19 is for the proposed. Yes, 13-19 is for the proposed, and then 13-18 is 13-20 is for the existing.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that D13-19 for 2022 for the proposed new lot be approved with the conditions that are included in the report and the conditions that Megan has added, and the following condition with respect to railway clearance. And that would be something to the effect that the applicant provide written consent defining specifications with respect to setbacks and any noise or vibration studies that may be required. Because, and the reason I put that condition in is because when we did the one on York Street, the applicant was required to get noise and vibration testing done prior to it coming to the Committee of Adjustment. I find it unusual that it's not in this one.
Good point, Mr. Ravenek. Do we have a seconder for that motion, please?
I got to second that, John.
Mr. Jackson seconds. All in favor?
So, Mr. Chairman, before we vote,
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Pizzo.
Henry's points are all going to be included.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Mr.
George.
And there. So that passes 13-19-22. Mr. Ravenek, would you like to jump on 13-20-22?
Yes, for 13-20-22, I'll again make a motion that it be approved and the conditions that are written in the report and any additional ones provided by Megan be included in the in the approval.
Great. Mr. Jackson, are you seconding that?
I can second that, yes.
Thank you very much. Further questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Thank you, gentlemen. D 10-16-2022, which is the consent application. Mr. Ravenek, you're on a roll.
Okay. I'll again make a motion that D 10-16-2022 be approved and the conditions listed in the report be included, as well as any additional conditions that have been discussed.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, are you seconding that?
I can do that.
We're on a roll here. Further questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Well done, gentlemen. Here you go, Emma. I think you'll be happy.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pizzo,
is Nicoletti taking us for lunch or what?
I hope so. She's the only one making money here. I don't know.
Or did
It's a
she
little
run
bit
away?
of
She
a
and
little
Julie
bit of a
Denton
trip
split.
from Cambridge, and we've got our staff barbecue that Julianne and I are both smelling through the halls.
Oh, and where is your office, please, Nicolette?
Kitchener. We're in
Yeah,
Kitchener. Kitchener.
Nicolette,
Kitchener.
come on, be nice. Be
Jeez.
nice.
Yeah, we're in Kitchener.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah.
Appreciate the
Thank
time.
you, everyone. Thank
Bye-bye
you.
now.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Next meeting is scheduled for August 18th. Where it looks like we have 2 minor variances and 1 consent.
Okay, I'm going.
Okay,
It's
go
enough.
get some lunch, Ed.
That's enough.
Well, he says what we all feel.
My dog waiting for me.
Okay, Do we have a
Mr.
motion
Tyson, is
to-
this a record meeting now? Have you broken the record for the longest meeting?
yeah, definitely. No, we went mid-afternoon one time and we all got a little bit silly, quite frankly. We were heading that way today. Thanks, gentlemen. Well done. Motion to adjourn. I think Mr. D'Angelo did that, right? So, okay, Mr. Jackson. All in favor? We're good.
Have a good afternoon.